Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Elena Avraam, today, Sports Psychology, will present us tonight a seminar with the title Working on Your Weaknesses Becomes Your Biggest Strength. Sorry about
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for the invitation, especially Corina. She was the person who contacted me regarding this internet event coming from Petros, a common person that we know, and a person that, as far as I know, in Cyprus has done a lot regarding our discipline in general. I chose the title that through your weakness you can find your strength. The main reason that I chose that title to start with was when I was thinking, why did I become a sports psychologist? Because I think that's the interesting part on how usually you start something, or maybe what's the motive. And when this motive becomes your life in a way, because it becomes your reason for developing, and in the process it becomes something even more than that. And so I pretty much started working with sports psychology. My first degree was sports psychology, was not psychology, was sports psychology. Later on, I did an extra diploma to obtain the title of the psychology also. But the reason that I went straight for sports psychology was my main interaction with sports. When I was a sports woman, when I was an athlete, let's say, and I was playing volleyball for a team here in Cyprus and for the national team also, I faced major issues in psychology, mainly when it comes to injuries. Every time that I was injured, I was feeling useless. And every time I was feeling useless, I had no one explaining me how you deal with this thing. So I didn't really know that there was somebody like me within my discipline that can help this process to become a process, to actually have a process down that will help you go through steps in order to have no trauma, mental trauma, when it comes to the injury, and also be able to come back to your performance in a extent that like never the injury never happened. When I was in the last year of Lyceum, as we call it here in Cyprus, I came across this degree that was called sports psychology. And I was really wondering, what is this degree? Why would they come into the thinking of going so precise and getting a discipline, becoming a whole degree, a whole bachelor degree? So I went through it and I understood that everything had to do with psychology. But then within the bachelor degree, they came into explaining more sports specific, how you deal with certain things. So when we talk about anorexia, when we talk about bulimia, when we talk about issues that we will see in clinical psychology, then you will also see these things in sports and how you deal with them when it comes to be combined with sports, either elite or recreational or as a hobby, and etc. So it was very, very interesting as a first degree because it gave me a great idea of who I want to become. And then in the process, I went into the need of getting more knowledge into the mainstream psychology. So I've done another degree on that. And then I've done a master's degree that it was the major sports psychology. And then I worked for some years in UK as a sports psychologist within the Sport Wales, which is let's say, as we say in Cyprus, COA. So it was the part of Wales that the athletes that they are under the national scheme, they're going and they're training and they're setting their goals with mentors like myself, with a proper team of psychology, dietitian, masseur, physiotherapist, doctor, everybody that is there to help and assist athletes to reach any potential they are able to succeed, let's say. Very interesting process, very interesting to understand what it means to be part of the team that helps the athlete. And the sad story about it is that when I came back to Cyprus in 2010, I had to face the disappointment of how non-existent this kind of a team, that you wouldn't find this thing, let's say back to 2010, you wouldn't find it in Cyprus. In Cyprus, things were much basic. You will find a coach, that it was the coach, the mentor, the psychologist, the dietitian, the masseur many times, the doctor many times. And, you know, the disciplines were not very clear. So I was struggling a lot when I came back in 2010, because I was wondering whether it was a right step to do. And I was wondering whether I should just go back. And this is where I met Petros Padounas, and he helped me a lot in this, because he gave me a clear understanding of, you know, when there is no potential, you create it. And when there is no one else than you, then you are the best. So it's great. No one will come and compare with you, because you're the only one. So I started as a sports psychologist. At the time was things became a little bit easier, because in Cyprus, all the colleges, the majority of the colleges became universities, and they made the discipline of sports science. So I was able to teach sports psychology within the universities. So it was giving me, let's say, the academic comfort with the financial comfort to come with it. And it was making my job of developing as a sports psychologist easier. And then I started booming everybody with this thing called sports psychology. I remember the first year that I was here, I made within a year, maybe close to 200 seminars in 1 year, in any federation that you can imagine, from ping pong to archery to taekwondo to karate. In every single federation, I was just sending out a free event invitation, and you know, whoever was coming in and asking me to do a seminar, I was going for it. So I was not taking no for an answer. That, you know, our discipline, the discipline of sports psychology, has no space in Cyprus. I will not accept that. Up to now, I'm fighting for it in a great extent. Things became much easier because other people came, and with let's say, maybe they took the courage to come and be involved within this discipline. And I find it very interesting to see how once the discipline is in, and once we started helping athletes, how greater we became also in general when it comes to performance and in sports in Cyprus. Just to give you an understanding, let's say in 2010, we're sending 7 or 8 people to the Olympics, and this year we sent 15. So I'm not saying that sports psychology did the difference, but I'm saying for sure it had a great part of it. And it's very, there is a great satisfaction there. I will explain just, sorry, I didn't start with the introduction that I said that I will say at the beginning, but I will just explain what we are really doing. What's our job as sports psychologist or as sports mentor or as mental coaches. You will find it many times written in papers and in articles. Our major job is to provide mental training to the athletes. So explain to the athletes how to use their brain to train their brain in every situation in order to obtain as much information as possible within their brain. And then when it comes to actually do the action, actually try to work out things in their sports, hopefully things will be easier. Another thing we do as sports psychologists, we always work with athletes and their injuries. And my let's say goal as a sports psychologist is to really help athletes within their injuries, taking you back where I started, and why I always thought that there is a big need there. When the athlete is into when an injury comes across, and the doctor says you need to stay out of your sports 6 to 8 weeks or 6 to 8 months, depending on what the injury you've got, the athlete is losing the biggest asset that up to that point things have. It's called training, it's called getaway, it's called performance, it's called identity. So all of a sudden you say, this thing has to be postponed, and you will have it back in a few months' time or a few weeks' time. So if the athlete doesn't know, if he doesn't have a mechanism to deal with this and, try to take it, let's say, the positive way, and or maybe it's time for me to experience other things at this time, at the same time, until my rehabilitation kicks in, athletes will come in and they will face things that they are very, they're not going to be helpful later on when they come again to become, let's say, to be able to work again, to be able to be functional. So what we do is help them, first of all, through their progress, make sure that the injury doesn't leave any mental trauma, and at the same time work on mental training in order to explain them that even if you cannot do it with your body, the mind can still work. And if you keep your mind working, your brain in a working mode and in a training mode, that when you come back to being active as an athlete, then it will be surely an easier way, an easier step towards this rehabilitation, let's say. So it's another thing that we do. Another thing that we work with, and another thing that we do, is communication. Especially in Cyprus, is one of the biggest things that we have as an issue. Communication, not only with the athletes, but also with the coaches, with their parents, if they are underage, with their partners or their wives or their husbands, if they're married. And when I'm in communication, it's pretty much almost educating. We try our best, and I'm trying my best to educate the people around the athlete of how and what is the right support towards the athlete. So once I make an analysis of understanding the way the athlete thinks, the way the athlete understands and accepts information, then I move on to the surrounding if it's needed, if it's something that is problematic. Not always is needed. Many times an athlete will come to you and will say, I'm never affected by anyone. I know exactly the way I want to think. I know exactly the way I want to work, and no one can affect the way of thinking. In that case, and if you surely understand that this is the case, you will not try to interfere with anything. But many times, and the majority of times, I will see that the people around the athlete are many times the biggest obstacle around the athlete. I'll give you an example that I'm surely the ones that you know about a little bit about football. If you see the youngest players, let's say parents, the way they think they support their kid when they sit on the stand and when they are there at a competition or a game to support, you will understand what I mean. Many times the athlete will face humiliation from the uncontrollable excitement that maybe the parents will show or understand, or many times they will face anger by the bad wording that maybe their parents will use when they are watching them, and so many other things that they will come up. So yes, our way is also to be, our job, let's say, is also to be educators, and I will tell you that maybe it's the hardest job that I face, especially here in Cyprus. And I say in Cyprus because when I was in UK, the parents and in general the people around the athlete, they were not so close in general. They learn from very young age to be independent in their everyday lifestyle, and also independent in their sports. So it was not something that you will face as a great issue. Sometimes you will, but not in a great extent compared to what we face in Cyprus. I think this you will face it anyway in other things also. It doesn't have to be related to sports. In overall, that's my saying. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to achieve in the years that passed and the years to come. My motive to work, and I always said that, is that to try to give my best knowledge and support to my athletes in order to be able for them to reach their full potential, no matter what this full potential is. The full potential can be, number 10 in Cyprus. The full potential can be number 1 in Olympics. There is no limit as long as the potential of the mind is combined with great talent, technique, hard work, discipline, and etc. Many aspects that are involved in sports apart from just, let's say, the mental part. That's what I had in mind to share with you today. I don't know if you've got any questions out there that maybe we can bring up.
I just have a comment, Elena. Sorry that I missed the beginning of your talk.
Hi, Penny.
Hi, but what I heard is very interesting, and it's interesting that you note the differences in your work as an effect of different cultures.
Yeah.
And it made me think of some other things that became clearer for me today. Really, you're taking a human being and trying to cultivate their awareness in all sorts of ways so that they can function in their sport and in their life. So it's in a way, the field of analysis which you bring this to is so pertinent in all sorts of ways for your field as well, to be as aware as you might be of the psychoanalytic contribution to help with it. But it sounds great.
The problem sometimes with our job, and this is what I said at the beginning, is that although it will be so much better, let's say, to also involve the part of the psychoanalysis within the support, the majority of the times when an athlete comes to you, it comes with a goal, and the goal has to do with the with a limit. Let's say it comes to me today and it says, in 4 weeks, I've got a competition that I need to come within the first 3 positions in order to take, let's say, 1 step further. So there is a big question which I answered throughout the years to myself on whether, or how deep do you go and how deep you can go in order to help that athlete to directly towards that goal, and at the same time, help the athlete in general, not just for that goal. And usually at the beginning, because I was quite confused, when you first starting back in 2006, when I first started working with athletes, I was trying to include within my support absolutely everything. So, because, when you first come out of a university and you've got so much knowledge within your head, you think that you can just open, their own head and put it in, but it doesn't work this way. It takes as many years as it took me, and it still takes me to evolve. I guess it takes the same year for another individual, which happens to be also an athlete, which happens to be an elite athlete, to also evolve. So the process needs time. And
it's an interesting question that you pose, though, because as you probably heard me speak before, a lot of my work is in the field of education. Yeah. And it's very interesting how, because with education, I deal with much bigger numbers of people, either directly or indirectly through other people who work with me. And with psychoanalysis, we do deal with a lot of people, but not quite in those big volumes. But each aspect has supported my development. So the psychoanalysis supported in some ways, and the education in other ways. And you find that it becomes very refined and distilled in your orientation. When we speak about the formation of the analyst, when we speak about the desire of the analyst, all of these are going to distill these different dimensions of experience, and how you formulate a single sentence will have that richness as time goes on, because you're not going to give them an encyclopedia, but you're going to take something that they say and respond in a way that takes into account what's on your awareness, but also to link it to something they've said so that they can make those connections. So in that sense, we drop the knowledge as such, but it informs, it gives a form, it gives an influence into how we interpret.
Many times I find that now, after, let's say, 14 years of experience, because I'm working as, at the beginning as a supervisee, but now I'm already a supervisor and a reviewer on this. So I find it much easier nowadays to keep myself back and give chance for them to explore, explain, give sentence.
Exactly.
At the beginning was the other way around. It was I will find myself into a monologue most of the times, because I was in my effort to pass my knowledge. Well, I was thinking that I was passing the knowledge. Maybe none of information was coming out towards them, but at the beginning it was very much the other way around. Now I give much more space.
Sure. But you never know if somebody is there and they're listening to you at some level. And if somebody is paying attention or not. It doesn't matter whether they remember or not, but something in what you say, you don't know which part of what you say is going to connect with something that lights up for them.
Exactly.
So
you need to find the fine line, is what you say. And I think psychoanalysis really has a part in within our sessions, because there is time that you will realize that the approach is not the coaching approach. It has nothing to do with the coaching approach, which usually their coaching approach is just, you know, pointing out the rules, the ways, the technique, the tactic, and that's it. It's totally the other way around. It's the listening, the forming, and being able then to, you know, to move forward, or understanding. It doesn't have to be move forward.
Yeah, and somebody who, in these situations where there's the asymmetry of power, so when somebody comes to someone, to some degree, the supposed practitioner is in a position of power and authority.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
In my experience, the person in the lesser power and authority, let's say, they will read very, very carefully, and they can feel whether your desire lifts them or whether it diminishes them. And that's the most important coordinate.
Yeah.
If it lifts them, they open.
Of course.
If it diminishes them, they close.
Of course, of course. And as I say many times, you know, you don't have to link with everybody. And just because we are not many, I mean, from my discipline here, it doesn't mean that somebody has to work with me, because there is no other. Maybe you will start a session, and the second session and the third session, and then you will realize, you know what, this doesn't help me.
Yeah.
And or even I will say, this doesn't help you. It did happen to me a few times when a person came here with already a strict form within his head, let's say, that nothing could change it. And no matter what I tried to do in the few sessions that we saw each other, I just realized that, you know what, this will not help you. This is not what you need, because you think that you need it because you're an athlete, but actually this is not what you need. And he was very pleased and very, I mean, as a person that came to me, was very pleased to at least see my honest opinion. And I didn't continue for sessions and sessions and sessions, just, you know, to see if this will take it somewhere. But what I'm giving you now as an example, it came out of all these years of experience. This confidence to say somewhere, you know, to someone that you need to move on to something else, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have it at the beginning of my career. I will just try to, you know, go back to all the books that I read to see if there is another way to help somebody.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
What happens if the athlete comes for a session and has a specific goal? Yeah. What happens if the athlete does not manage to achieve that goal?
Mm-hmm.
That is a question.
Okay.
Based on your own experience and the dynamics that you've seen
of course,
successes, you've seen things that they were not so successful, etc., etc.
In the goal setting model, let's say, there is a very clear rule that usually is easy to follow. It's called the SMART or SMARTER rule, goal model, and which is the S for specific, M for measurable, A for adjustable, R for realistic, and T for timed. The key in this model is what I say, adjustable. Because yes, maybe you will set a goal, you will do everything you can for that goal, and that goal, for some reason, either because you didn't perform at your best, either because you perform at your best, but the other ones perform better. Otherwise, because some, you know, because of certain circumstances, you know, the outcome didn't come. So you already know when you set the goal that maybe you will have to adjust it coming towards the goal. It's not an easy thing. Many times you have, you know, the great disappointment coming out of this. And this is where our job becomes more important, let's say, because you will have to find and help that athlete to form a mechanism to deal with it. and it becomes more dynamic, let's say, our position there and our job. But in overall, there is not one answer to this. It's all about the way that that athlete learned to deal with disappointment, learned to deal with whether he had a disappointment before, you know, an unsuccessful goal, or whether it's the first one. Because I had both scenarios. I had a scenario that an athlete was coming to me, and up to the age of 16, never lost a competition. He was always winning. And at the age of 16, lost his first competition. And there was a massive slap, not only for him. As I said at the beginning, it's the whole environment that becomes the issue also. The whole environment never learned how to deal with it and how to support this athlete. So we educated them. You know what? There is also losing. And losing is part of the game. Losing is part of competitions. Losing, it is part of sports. No athlete became a champion and the best of the world without losing at least one time. I mean, this is out of the research, not just out of my mouth. And I had also an athlete that, although he knew, you know, and he worked through this process a lot of, you know, how we deal and how I will deal in case of an unsuccessful goal. It still hurt. It still sting so much that it took weeks and months to deal with it. And there is also a disappointment, let's say. I'll give you an example, a disappointment that comes out of this that also you have to deal with. I'll give you an example of an athlete that is from UK, Amber Hill. Amber Hill is a fantastic shooter. She gained the position to go to the Olympics. She had a great chance to win a medal, if not the gold medal. And she didn't go due to COVID. So I remember very well when she found out that she was positive and she didn't attend the event. She put on her social media that just feeling broken. This was the only quote that she wrote down, and she shared it with her fans because she obviously has a lot of fans from UK and in general with the society of the social media. And this athlete, because it was very interesting for me to see how also she will deal with such an event, with such a situation. In a couple of weeks after this post that she pointed out, and she didn't have any interaction after that in the social media, we've seen her posting out events and things that she was doing outside the shooting society. So what she tried to do is to, you know, enjoy a little bit if there is such a thing, of enjoying a little bit the opportunity, and I put it in brackets, that it come with actually not going to a competition, with enjoying with the everyday things that maybe she's missing being an elite athlete. And so it was very interesting to see this event coming up. And yeah, and that's it.
I really listened earlier, you mentioned the word mechanism. You help the athlete establish a mechanism.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to what you said earlier about psychoanalysis. And I will add to that in my opinion, based on my own experience, for a mechanism to work, there has to be a lifting of the already established restriction, which I heard earlier that you said that you find ways through free speech, to establish a form of psychoanalytic approach to what you're doing.
Yeah, if there is how do you say, space, if there is opportunity, if there is, then most of the times this is what is the best solution to help the athlete, help that human being that comes to you, to find the way to form these solutions. I would say maybe, you know, mechanism as a word maybe it's a bit strong, and maybe it's a redirecting in other areas, in other ways also, but help forming solutions to these situations that maybe will not happen always, and each solution most of the times maybe is different. It's not just, you know, the same. As human beings, you know very well also that one solution is maybe only for unique situations.
Not the same for everyone.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you. Thank you, Marino.
Hi, Elena.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. It was lovely. It made me curious about a few things, because you mentioned something that it stayed in my ears when they come, let's say, 4 weeks before they have actually a goal, to achieve a goal. In my head, somehow thinking of an athlete who is, performing certain sports and they want to achieve something, coming to you, let's say, 4 weeks time before they want to set the goal, seems like a really short period of time. So what I'm curious about is, when do they come to you when they think that they need support? Do they just attend the sessions throughout their experience with the sports, like as let's say a lifestyle that they may have, or they come to you, let's say, after a failure? You mentioned somewhere, they may fail and they face difficulties there. So out of so many years that you observe things, when do they actually seek for your help?
I will say I tick all the boxes, all the above. So I will have athletes that they come to me because somebody pushed them to come. Mainly, the majority of the times, maybe it's the parents, because the parents see a behavior that they don't like. I'll give you an example. A young tennis player, when lose a point, hits the tennis racket on the floor. So the parents don't like this, and somebody told them, you know what, there is a sports psychologist that can help them with this behavior. So they will come to me with having in mind that this is what they're going to be helped for, but then their whole universe change, because obviously we're not going to just target the one behavior, and obviously what you're seeing as a symptom, which is throwing a racket on the floor, that's not really the reason that happens. If there is a background behind this behavior. I have athletes that come to me that because they want to include it within their team, within their support group. So yes, they have goals in front of them, but the idea is not to help them for the next goal down the line, but to help them overall. And there is also athletes that they come here thinking that they will be helped for that goal specifically, which is in a 1 month or 2 months time. And once this is achieved, and they realize how much it actually helped them, or whether, well, actually maybe it didn't help them for the specific goal, but it has improved them in general, then they stay. So all the above, let's say.
And out of curiosity as well, how about trainers? Do they advise?
Of course.
All right.
Of course. I'll give you an example. I was yesterday in Apollo. Here in Cyprus, we've got a team that is called Apollo Football. And I had meetings with the young ones, under 14 up to under 17, each age group separately. And when I finished with that, I recommended that the next meeting we do, out of the sessions came out, let's say, that the next meeting we do is with the coaches. So if they don't recommend it to me, usually I recommend it to them. But of course, the coaches need educating, and of course they need educating not just once. It has to be the same, as regular as possible, or as regular as an athlete will need it, in order to, work to improve an attitude or a behavior or an approach within their sports.
When you mention educating, what do you
Yes.
mean by that? How did you, because you mentioned the education of a parents and people that, they don't really
It becomes more of it all depends on what environment you've got. If it's a team, if it's, as I said now, the under 14 team of a football team, then I will make educational seminars or even workshops or meetings and chats that we will talk about how to deal. I go very specific usually in this meeting. So I will go into what's the best approach for them, and what do they need to say, or what they could say to their kids before, during, or after a competition. The reason I'm doing that, and the reason I'm very specific, is because of the limitation of time and how many times we can repeat this meeting. And throughout the years of my experience, I realized that if you go and give
Elena, we cannot hear
them,
you. Can you
hear
repeat that
me
again?
now?
Yeah. Can you repeat the last sentence?
Yeah. Throughout, I said the years of my experience, I came to realize that the more targeting information you provide to the support group, the more effective will be. This will, there is no guarantee that you can win the majority of them, but as I remember well, Petros told me at the beginning of when we first talked, if you win the 5 or 10% of your audience, you should be a proud person. So I think I kept that in mind when we had these discussions. So yes, if I have, if I at least I managed to affect or help with the information that I try to pass on some of the people that they're listening from the audience, that's already a small success here for me also. I think Panos raised a hand earlier.
Correct. Hello, and thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry I was unable to come from the very beginning. I was just wondering, because I was listening at some point now, is it that bad to throw the racket on the floor if you lose a point?
Of course not.
Okay.
But no, I gave you the reason that people will come to me. It doesn't mean that I would tell them to stop it.
Okay. Okay.
No, there is no problem apart from the cultural boundaries, I will say, because especially when it comes to a country like Cyprus, that the parents usually they really worry about the picture that the child will bring out.
You probably mean the image they
of course
depicted
the image that they show. Exactly, the society image that their kid will bring, and how that affects their own image, really. Like if he's hitting the racket on the floor, did I do my job well as a parent? So if I don't then do my job good as a parent, let's take him to a sports psychologist, in a way that if that behavior is corrected, then we took the right step. But if it's not corrected, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault as a parent, because I put the right person there to help and it didn't. So that they take, let's say, the responsibility in a way away from them. Yeah.
Good way to start with a life coach, I guess, though.
Yeah.
Good reason. Okay.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying, that they will come to me. They will always, the parents will always have a reason. It could be that, it could be swearing in a game, it could be hitting. I had once back in 2012, I had an athlete that his mom came to me and he said, look, Elena, I just want you to help me, to help my kid, actually, my child, to stop hitting with his head his opponents. So the kid was a football player, and when he was getting very pissed off, he was going and just hitting with his forehead his opponents. And it was something that he's done a few times in a match, and he got 4 or 5 red cards. So in a year, he actually managed to play 4 games, and the rest was banned. So the mom was really, seeking for help there, and we worked a lot. But let's say that my main work had nothing to do with the red card.
Yeah. With that example that you gave, I think it's better to hit the racket on the floor.
At least, yeah. Well, in tennis, you will still get a warning if you've done it for a few times, but yes, you will not be banned for sure. Mr. Petro Spatunas, you raised your hand. Leave your wife and come to talk.
No, it's me. It's me. Okay. I just want to make, if you allow me, 3 interpretations of how I see the way you stand in the Cyprus society and in certain European countries. I will start from the last one, that the guy with the head, that's a very gifted head he has there. And then I go to the second, and I assume humorous interpretation that the actual coach in Cyprus is the Cypriot parent.
Of course.
But mostly I would like to concentrate on something you said in the beginning, which I find it to exemplify the way you operate and how people can receive inspirations from you as a person, not when they work with you, but by seeing your example. You said that this is sports psychology and helping athletes became a way of life, and even more than that. It just captured me, that more than that. And I was thinking, what is more than life? And after about 25 minutes of thinking about it, whilst hearing you speaking, it came to my head that more than life, it's an act of faith in life. And I think this is what you present with, not only to your athletes, but with the way you manage to situate yourself to create a space where there was no space for you. So that's for me, that's an act of faith in life itself. So I just wanted to pass this thought.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, Petro. It is true. I mean, in a great extent, it is true what you're pointing out, that when you talk in psychology, they and when you study psychology, they give you disciplines, and they give you directions, and they say to you what you want, how you want to direct yourself in this in your work. Do you want to be person-centered? Do you how you want to be? Do you want to just approach it with just a more observational approach, and then see how it goes? And in all the years that I've been working, I would say that every time that I try to change my way and try to try to adapt other ways in order to fit in situations, it actually didn't work. So my ways, what you pointed out, and the way of evolving and becoming good at this is it's really a life process. I mean, a lifetime procedure.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to point out things?
Good evening, Elena.
Oh. You want to go first, Michaelo?
Oh, okay, your lady.
I don't mind.
No.
Okay. Hello, Elena, and thank you very much for your presentation. My question is about what do you believe? What's your opinion about the no pain, no gain philosophy? Because I will explain. Well, when I was a kid, I was in a gymnastics background.
Ouch.
Yes, exactly. And our coaches, their approach was really to hit.
Yeah.
Really, but I mean, not just yelling, but hitting.
No, I know. I've seen
just coming and sitting on us, like 5 years old. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a very, how to say, individual sport. You're not part of the team. It's very competitive. And well, I want your opinion on that. And because it was really like the punishment, the fear, it was the way of the coach. It was not working for me though. I changed direction for several reasons. Thank you.
Well, it's all about choice, I would say. If you're asking me about, I would take the first part, the no pain, no gain. I would say that this code is good for the personality that suits it. I mean, if you are that type of personality that really understand the meaning out of the no pain, no gain, and the pain doesn't have to be only physical. It can be, I mean, metaphorical. It can be sacrifice. It doesn't have to be just the, you know, the actual word on your body. Then this can define you as, you know, as a person in general. Well, it comes to gymnastics, it's a very sensitive subject because I've seen many sides of it. I've seen it in UK and I've seen it in Cyprus. In UK, I've seen it in a very civilized way. And I would tell you that my first touch with the sport was in UK. So I didn't know that there was another way. So it was very civilized, you know, with the continuous effort, support, from the coaches, the continuous information coming to the kids until they achieve what they're asking them to achieve, with the patience that the coaches must have in order to see the sport evolving and etc. And bear in mind that UK GB Olympic, you know, Olympic team, it's one of the best teams that we have in the world. Then I came to Cyprus in 2010, and in 2011 I had my first and last experience with the sport. And the reason that I had the first and the last experience with the sport, which sometimes I would say I feel guilty because I think that maybe if I was there, I would help more. But you need to know your own boundaries and your own, you know, limits as a person. And I think that sport specifically showed me that I have also limits of the way I can provide and help and, you know, show my support. It's very difficult. I hope that after so many years, I didn't get the opportunity again since that 2011 or 2012 to work again with an athlete, a young athletes. I worked, but only with elite that they already went through process, which we didn't come to discuss in detail. They were already, let's say, defined within the sport. But yes, it's a very difficult sport to work with, or at least it was 10 years ago when I made my attempt here in Cyprus. It was one of the sports that I conducted when I first came, and I made maybe 10 or 15 seminars in different clubs. And then I watched trainings, and yeah, it killed me to watch what I was watching because I knew that there was another way, where the sad thing about it was that because people don't know that there is another way, they think that this is the only way. This tough approach of, you know, pushing to the limit in order to open a split, or, you know, hit the legs in order to not to make the mistake, in order not to get yourself injured, because that was the idea out of it. Yeah, it was quite tough.
Yes.
I'm glad that you moved on though, because you said that you moved on to another direction. So
I found a different metaphor.
Okay.
I think there was also a whole culture behind it between, well, Russia and
Yes.
America.
Yes.
Competition.
It's still there, unfortunately. I mean, not the country and not the culture, but the people that used to be there 10 years ago. And I think that's the reason that I don't get myself involved so much still with the sport. I know that they're still there. So I find it very, very difficult that they change their way of thinking and the way of coaching and dealing with 4 and 5 and 6-year-old kids.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mihailo?
Yes, good evening, Elena.
Good evening.
So I'm practicing martial arts, mixed martial arts for a long time.
Ah.
And yeah, I'm also a life coach and I'm planning to open the School of Martial Arts in the future. So these informations which you are giving us, it's very valuable for me.
That's
and
great.
I think your job is great. And I think the coaches and trainers, they should work, they should, listen these things because it's very important, especially in martial arts, because this is tough sport. And in this sport, you can see as you explained now, in tennis, they can hurt the racket, but in the martial arts, they can hurt other person.
Yeah, of course.
So what I saw in these years of my experience that, there is some people, they show more aggression that they should, some people, they have, this tension to hurt someone. And I have 2 questions for you. I noticed in my school that many guys, they are quitting. So they are quitting after the injury mostly. And my questions, it's both in that direction. I think, I don't know, did you probably you have it in your practicing that the people in some point, the sportists, they realize that they are in the wrong sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in martial arts, it happens because they come with their own reason. They are not analyzing that. And there is not many people like you that they can, talk with. And after the injury, they are stopping and they are going away. So probably the motive, it was wrong. And that was the first question. And the second question, it's very interesting for me. You was mentioning on the beginning that the main problem in sport, it's injury and how to continue after that. So our trainer, he has one philosophy, which is fine. I never thought deeply about it. Every time when we have injuries, is it the arm? I saw really, really hard injuries there and breaking the leg and arm and many other different. So he insists for us to come on the training. Even I had broken arm one time and he was pressing me to work with one arm. So I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the floor with one arm. And he thinks that is very important because of the mental stage to continue with any training. And in that sense, we're developing different parts of the bodies. So I wanted to hear your opinion about it. Probably you know more why
okay. I will tell you, I will go for the first statement and question that you've got there. The motive of somebody that is starting a sport, I mean, the motives that are there, they're, a lot. It could be because of the peers, it could be because of the friends that they are going along, it could be because they heard somewhere that martial arts is a very interesting thing. It could be because they know that maybe martial arts gives very nice body. So the body image is very important for them. So therefore they're going for it. And it could be because they really like hurting other people, but they don't realize that it's vice versa. So I like hurting other people, but at the same time, I can get hurt. If your question is how to prevent this, how to have an academy and a place and a club that will have less people living. Yeah, tell me, please.
Yeah, it's very interesting for me because in the time when I opened my school, I think this knowledge it could be very valuable for me to have the people when I see this behave. So
yeah, there is no way, there is never the perfect way, but surely by explaining from the beginning the good, the advantages and disadvantages of the sport can give them a better picture before they even started. Of course, when you go into this, you don't try to scare the people. I mean, you don't say you can break a leg and you can break an arm and you can have a concussion, because then they will not even try it, thinking that it's such, when you know something that is so scary, maybe it can prevent you from even trying it. But you can show and you can actually give a good understanding of the the advantages and disadvantages, of the goods and the bads of going into martial arts. But there is not a great recipe. People will still come and do it because their friend is coming, and they will still come and try and work it. And then once they have an injury that, or get hurt, that they didn't really think about it, they will there is a big chance that they will skip it. So good luck for that. All the best. In regard to what your coach or your mentor mentality is in regard to the injury, I would say it always depends on the personality of the person. What do I mean? There is athletes that if you force them to come to their environment that they were feeling functional, great, amazing, but they cannot be because of the injury, it can be detrimental for their psychology. It can actually really have the opposite effect. If that person, though, if a person actually was having the approach of, it's better to be around my environment that I feel the comfort, that I know that I belong. And I think the key word here is the belonging. Then yes, keeping them around and giving them other ways to train, taking into consideration their injury, then it can actually be very helpful. Many times the coaches, from my experience, I will see that maybe they will not bring them to the environment, in the actual club, but they will keep them into a rehabilitation center and ask them to work on the other aspects of their sport until they're 100% again back from the injury, or 90 or 80% back.
Yeah,
but
so basically the coaches, they need to have some knowledge of psychology,
of course,
and to have
yes.
different approach.
Yes, and
Because
we sometimes say, but the majority of the courses that the majority, if not all, of the courses that the coaches are actually obtaining, there is psychology involved. It's just they don't pay attention. Because I am involved with many courses that they provide diplomas for coaches in many sports: karate, football, basketball, volleyball. All of them include basic psychological skills of how to work with your athlete, how you deal with your athlete's misbehavior, how to deal with athletes' injuries, and etc. So sometimes, unfortunately, they think that psychology is not important until, unfortunately, becomes important because of an injury.
Actually, it is very much.
Yeah.
Even in amateur sport and professional sport.
Yeah.
So thank you, Elena.
Thank you, hello. Thank you.
So
all the best.
Last question from Melanie.
Yeah.
I see that you raised the hand.
Everyone. And sorry for my video. There is probably problem with my computer.
No problem.
There is like this. Thank you, Elena, for your
Thank you, Melanie.
presentation, and Harula for what you said. And I would like to share my experience. I used to be a dancer and a performer also in Cyprus and in Greece also. And the teachers or the director, they didn't treat you humanly. They don't have a human behavior. And after that, I have a master degree στη ψυχολογία και στην εμψύχωση των ομάδων. I can translate it.
Psychology and psychological support of the teams, kind of.
All right. And also I am a yoga instructor and movement instructor. And with this direction, I find some other way to train your body without pain and to listen your group, to listen what you have in your team, to listen your team, the needs, to treat them as a human. For this direction, they don't treat me like a human, and they have a quote in theater and performance and the dance, like Harula said, if you can't cope with that, you don't belong in this area. You have to πρέπει να αντέξεις. They tell you. You have to be strong for this. And I am I have an absolutely different idea of that.
It's very interesting, Melanie, to see though that out of this negative experience that you had, a very positive outcome, let's say, came to your lifetime experience, because you had a negative experience which had to do with dance, but then you found a reason for your future, and that's a very, very interesting and way of seeing it, because it could involve in totally the other way around, you know, it could be detrimental for yourself, but it didn't. So well done.
Thank you. Well done to you also.
So thank you, Elena, and everybody.
Thank you
for tonight. It was very interesting what we've heard. Good night.
Thank you, Corina. You were a fantastic presenter.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.